Hello, I'm Julia George. This is the Sunday Politics in the South East. Coming up later, as Theresa May settles into Downing Street, we'll take a look at those from the South East joining her at top table. With me in the studio today are Henry Smith, the Conservative MP for Crawley, and Labour's Baroness Maggie Jones, who lives in Brighton. Lovely to see you both. Thank you for joining us. Now, one of the biggest district Labour parties in the country will not be able to play a full part in the party's next leadership election. It follows allegations of abusive behaviour at Brighton and Hove Labour's AGM last weekend. Elections of senior local members have also been voided following questions over the ballot. Here's Natalie Graham.
Gathering storm clouds over Brighton, a city with a Labour-run council, the South East's only Labour MP, and deep divisions within the party. The left-leaning group supporting Jeremy Corbyn's leadership, Momentum, is gaining ground here. Last weekend, it organised a big rally. Shortly afterwards, hundreds queued up to speak at the Brighton and Hove District Labour Party's annual general meeting, an event which usually attracts only a modest turnout. In an email apparently sent to some party members before the meeting by the moderate Labour leader of the City Council, Warren Morgan, he talked of a takeover. He described some in Momentum as hostile towards Labour councillors and appealed for support, saying this party has faced down militants before. An unprecedented and unexpected number of people, around 600, turned up to vote in senior members of the District Labour Party. 3 separate meetings had to be held. Every one of the 5 positions went to Jeremy Corbyn's supporters. But on Thursday, Labour's ruling body, the National Executive, overturned those appointments. In a letter to the branch, it said it had received many complaints alleging abusive behaviour by some attending the meeting, and the safety of members may be put at risk should any further meetings be held until the leadership contest is over. There were also complaints to the NEC that the ballot wasn't held properly. That ballot has put the constituency party at odds with Hove's MP, an outspoken critic of Jeremy Corbyn, who says the NEC's actions are justified.
This is a Labour party. This is a values and principles driven political movement. Even if this is happening on the fringes, it needs to be taken incredibly seriously, because I'm telling you there is no place for it in our party.
The man who was elected as chair last week has called the NEC move draconian and undemocratic. Others deny there was any trouble at the meeting.
It was an example of how democratic debate amongst friends in the same party should be conducted. And what we're talking about is allegations of events that did not happen.
But others say the executive had to act.
There are lots of allegations that rules around behaviour, around voting and so on were broken. There's a strong sense that something went quite badly wrong in the Brighton and Hove annual general meeting, and the NEC has a duty and a responsibility to the members to step in this way and to sort it out.
This ruling now means the party won't be allowed to hold any hustings for the forthcoming leadership election.
Given that Brighton Hove District Labour Party is, as we understand it, the biggest single Labour Party unit in the entire country, being told that we can't have leadership hustings here in Brighton and Hove disenfranchises approximately 6,000 Labour Party members from hearing directly from our leadership candidates, and I think that's a really sorry state to be in.
A Labour Party spokesperson told us it doesn't comment on ongoing investigations, but said any allegations of misconduct are always taken very seriously. So, when the investigation is concluded and the AGM is held again, could there be choppy waters ahead?
Natalie Graham with our report. Well, joining us live from Brighton now is the man who had been elected chair of the Brighton and Hove Labour Party before the results were declared void. Mark Sandell, thank you very much for joining us. These are...
Good morning.
Good morning to you. These are serious allegations from Labour's governing body. Let's start with the ballot. And I'm going to quote, reports that the ballot results were not properly reached. What do you understand that you are being accused of there?
I think there's just one reason why the results were annulled, and that's because some people don't like the outcome. If you have a problem with the ballot and the way it's counted, you can have a recount. That's the way we deal with it in democratic elections in this country. If you have allegations against individuals, they should be dealt with. But 600 people having their opinion ignored because they made the wrong decision and supported people who support Jeremy Corbyn is not acceptable.
So you have not been given any indication about what that accusation about the ballot means, about what precisely they're talking about when it comes to how the votes were cast or how they were counted?
We were planning to have a meeting next week of the executive to organise a campaign in East Brighton in a by-election where the Tories and UKIP are trying to defeat Labour. We were planning to use the support we had at the meeting to mobilise Labour's vote. We are now banned from having any meetings, any organisation at this time post-Brexit with a new Tory leader. And this has all come about simply because the members of the party voted for the wrong candidates who supported Jeremy Corbyn. We've had absolutely no communication about any specific allegation whatsoever. So what we'll be doing is, through Momentum, the Momentum webpage, Facebook page, we'll be keeping people involved in an active campaign in East Brighton to win for Labour.
Okay.
And we'll be asking people who are members of the party to vote for the Grassroots Alliance in the National Executive election, because the National Executive needs to be turned into a democratic body rather than one that actually
We're going to talk to a former member of the NEC shortly who's in the studio with us, but I do want to look again at these allegations. I know that you're insisting that nothing was untoward, but to say that the safety of members at the meeting was compromised, do you accept there's any possibility at all that people were intimidated, bullied or threatened at the meeting?
Everyone, I was obviously there at the meeting, but I mean everyone I've spoken to has said that it was one of the most polite, most comradely meetings they've been to for a long time, especially given the huge numbers of people that turned up, often having to wait for an hour and a half outside the room because there just wasn't space to have a safe meeting without having it in sessions. So I think that, you know, the allegations are just an excuse for carrying out the things that they want to. And I would encourage those people who want to vote for Jeremy Corbyn, who have actually been blocked by the National Executive if they've been members for less than 6 months, to get on the website, pay their £25, I know it's a lot of money, on Monday and Tuesday, to make sure that they get a vote in the party that they want to be a member of.
What do you feel your role is now? One moment you've been elected to a significant role within the local party, now the results are void. Greg Hadfield, who we heard from in Natalie's report, who'd also just been elected, wrote on Twitter that democracy in Labour had just died, but he also said that he intended to go ahead with the inaugural meeting of the Executive Committee. Is that going to happen or not?
No, we're not going to be having any meetings because we've been told explicitly that no Labour meetings can happen, but we will be having Momentum meetings in Brighton. The trade unions in Brighton will be calling a rally to support Corbyn because they vastly support Corbyn's election. And we will carry on with our campaigns on things like railways. The privatisation of the railways has been a disaster. We want to see them renationalised. We will be campaigning for a vote against Trident, which is a weapon that will cost £200 billion, enough to build 3 million houses.
Yeah, I want to stay on, but this is the Sunday Politics in the South East, and whilst those issues may be very interesting, I want to stay on the local issues as well. So Mark, I will thank you very much indeed for joining us. Mark Sandell there. Maggie Jones, that suspension of not just the Brighton and Hove party unit, but all PLP meetings until after the leadership election. Jeremy Corbyn has just said that is a mistake. Do you agree?
I think the problem has come about because there has been increasing amounts of intimidation and abuse at the meetings that have taken place. And I'm sorry to say that that was certainly true at the Brighton meeting as well. I was there, of course.
What did you
Well,
witness?
and so people, it was a very badly organised meeting. It was people were queuing on the stairs for, well over an hour, an hour and a half.
But Maggie Jones, badly organised is not the same as bullying or intimidation.
No, but I did witness one of the officials being very upset because he'd had to deal with a spitting incident, for example. It was not a well-organised meeting, and I would hope that Mark would deal with, would agree with that.
Well, like Jeremy Corbyn says,
should have been predicted.
Get a bigger room.
Well, and maybe that's what we should have done in the future. But the point is that our party officials now are having to deal with a lot of abuse. You've heard about people having bricks through the windows, abuse on Twitter and so on. Jeremy Corbyn hasn't got a grip of that. I'm very sorry to say that. It's very, very heartbreaking to hear about all these incidents, but that is the truth of what's happening. And can I just say about the Brighton and Hove meeting, the truth is that we were not given the chance to ask people like Mark about what their motives really were. He has a long-standing relationship with the Alliance of Workers' Liberty, which is a Trotskyist group. We weren't given the opportunity to ask him how long that alliance that relationship has taken place. How long has he actually been in the Labour Party? There were lots of really good new members at the meeting. Great, we really want to work with them, but there was a minority of people who who are entryist and have got a long-standing reputation of trying to do that, and we didn't have a chance to challenge
Maggie
them.
Jones, you're making some quite serious allegations about some of the people who were elected, and I think we should go back and give them a chance to respond to that. So going back to Mark Sandell, I mean, these points have been made in some of the local press as well, that you have previously been a member of parties and organisations that stand against Labour. Would you tell us the truth of the matter?
Okay, I joined the Labour Party first in 1986, and I've been a Labour Party member on and off over the years since then. I've not stood against Labour. I'm not in any organisation other than the Labour Party. I do support socialist policies, and I have always supported socialist policies, as do many other people, including Jeremy Corbyn, of course. So I think that we're an organisation, the Labour Party, that should have space for socialists, and I don't think there's anything wrong with having socialists in there. We had 9 days after the nominations, which were published on the websites of the local party, which explained our politics, for anyone to object and anyone to ask us questions. We didn't have any objections. All the candidates went into that election as bona fide Labour Party members.
Does that answer your point about what they have been in the past and what they are now?
No, because we understood that we would have a normal hustings meeting where we would have the chance to ask the people at the meeting, and of course that no questions were allowed.
Right. So would you both be satisfied with holding this again? And when does, I mean, clearly there does have to be another AGM and another election.
Well, there will be in due course, but the truth is that the NEC have taken their decision now. You can't pick and choose which decisions of the NEC you like and you don't like. I mean, there were some decisions that the NEC have taken that everyone was very pleased about. They've taken their decision. Due process will take place, and of course, at some point, the party will have to be reconstituted.
But Maggie Jones, this idea that the biggest unit Labour Party in the country cannot play a full role in the election of the new leader, that sounds bizarre. Does that not seem strange to you?
People will be debating this all around the country.
But no hustings in Brighton and Hove, your city.
Well, the fact is that people will be debating this in all sorts of arenas around the country, but it's unfair to expect the party to organise formal meetings in the way that's being proposed, particularly when there's been a lot of allegations of bullying and harassment at the meetings. So I think we have to do it on a much more civil basis.
I do want to bring Henry Smith in actually at this point, which may seem strange, and at risk of offering you an open goal here, Henry Smith. Labour. An effective opposition. It's been suggested that a Conservative government at the moment without an effective opposition grows factional. It looks for opposition within its own party. How important is it that your New Look government has an effective opposition?
Well, in a democracy, we need a plural system, and certainly in recent weeks in the House of Commons, it's been quite noticeable how there has been a lack of opposition. Now, that might sound a strange thing for somebody to say who supports the Conservative government to say, but I do think it is healthy in a democracy that there is that kind of challenge. And I also think within political parties, it's not for me to comment particularly on internal Labour Party politics, but I do think democracy within parties as well is very important. And it seems to me that Jeremy Corbyn won a very resounding victory less than a year ago as leader of the Labour Party. I worked with him as a vice chair in an all-party parliamentary group for several years. I don't agree with many of his policies, but I think he's an honourable individual, and I think democracy should be respected.
Thank Mark Sandell. We must leave it there. There's other subjects to talk about this week, but thank you very much indeed for joining us.